Okay, let's get started. Good evening, everybody. Welcome to the August 17th, 2023 Fire Safe Council for Los Angeles virtual town hall. We do this every month on the third Thursday of the month. My name is David Barrett from MySafe LA, and we have a really interesting evening planned for everyone tonight. I think it's hopefully going to be not only interesting, but productive and useful because we're going to be talking about insurance and some of the new changes that are coming along. We're going to talk a little bit about the weather forecast for the late summer and early fall. And most importantly, we're going to be talking about the fires in Maui. And the big question is could those fires happen here? It's an extremely sensitive issue. It's one that I've been getting a lot of questions about over the last week, and something that we want to make sure that we are addressing for the benefit of everyone who's on the call and for all of your neighbors and people that you know. So welcome. As you can see, this image was taken just last week and is in a canyon in Los Angeles, and it shows the remarkable amount of vegetation growth that's taken place this year. But when I drive through there or when I'm involved with that, all I see is fuel. This is all stuff that can burn. So it's something that concerns me, and it's one of the reasons why we do what we do. Remember, when you're commenting or asking questions or dealing with any of our guests or any of our members, it's important that you recognize that we're all on the same team, so to speak. We're all here to learn and to share experience and stuff. This is not political in any way, shape, or form. So being kind and asking questions with the understanding that we may not have all the answers, but we're very interested in getting you the right information. Even if there are topics for which you may disagree, disagreement is fine, but there's a way in which we can share with one another so that it isn't abusive. As a reminder to everyone, if you want to learn more about what we do and stay more in touch with what goes on, both at MySafe LA with the Wildfire Alliance with the Los Angeles Fire Department, mysafela.org/wildfire is the place to go. And that's always changing. In fact, during the next month, we're going to be adding a whole list of contractors who can help you with defensible space, who've been vetted and are properly licensed by the state to be able to provide those services as well. So that's just one example of why going to the wildfire section of the MySafe LA website is a good idea. So tonight's agenda, a couple of opening remarks. I'm kind of in the midst of it right now. We're going to have an update on our Wildfire Alliance progress. Carl Ginsberg, our county coordinator, is with us tonight. And then we're going to have a special presentation with a resident of Maui who's going to join us tonight, talk to us about what's going on over there without the filter of politics or news media, what have you. We're going to talk about the fact that the wildfire season is ramping up. We're getting right into that season right now, and what are the things that we need to be thinking about, and is this a particularly bad time to be acting rapidly, or is it a good time to be acting rapidly? And then we'll talk about our future schedule. We're going to do a wildfire preparedness workshop in September. We've got a number of public safety fairs related to wildfire taking place in October and November. If we have some time, we'll allow for public comment. One of the things about time, it's very important to us that each of these presentations lasts no more than 90 minutes. We don't want your entire evening taken up, but we want to also make sure that we share enough that can be absorbed and that is reasonable. So with that in mind, let's move on to the last thing I want to share with you before we dive into our content, and that is our wildfire survey is still live. If you go to the mysafela.org/wildfire, right at the top, you'll see take the survey. It doesn't take long. It's about a 10-minute survey, but it allows us to learn from you what your concerns are, what are the things you think are most important. And that in turn helps us. It helps our partners at the LA City Fire Department and other agencies to be able to kind of get a good thumbprint, as it were, of what's going on in the community. So Carl Ginsberg, our LA County Wildfire Coordinator, joined with a a captain from LA City Fire up in Ventura today for a defensible space seminar and a Firewise USA presentation. And he's the guy who is responsible for making sure that all of our homeowners associations and neighborhood councils and folks are doing the right thing. You want to give us just a brief, off the cuff, off the hip update, Carl?
Sure. I was up in that same canyon, this Mandeville Canyon, for those who live in LA. And when we saw that fuel up there, and we did meet with Mandeville Canyon, so we're bringing them into the fold as soon as we can to get them certified as a fire safe council. That canyon, like some others in LA, is a one-way in, one-way out canyon. So just hearing that, you can understand what the challenge is, in addition to the amount of foliage that's grown up there. So it's a tough place to get into, a tough place to fight fires in, and it's a tough place to get out of in the event of a fire. So today's what was called the workshop put on by Ventura County Fire. There was entities from all over the area. LA County was there, LA City was there. I was along with the captain from out in the valley. It was a very good presentation. I learned some interesting things, which I have to check with David, and we have to look it up and see if some of the things we heard are different than some of the things I think we're aware of. But that happens all the time. Every time we have these meetings and seminars, we get new information or conflicting information. So it's a little bit confusing, but we'll get that straightened out. And I was asked if we're just working on the city of LA, and I don't remember who it was, and I said, no, we're moving out into the county, we're building relationships with the county. And just there you go, on the way back, as I'm driving back from Ventura, David sent me a request from Westlake that wants to get involved. So the program is growing. We would have wished that we would have more people or more organizations hooked in before fire season, but we'll just continue on and continue trying to get everybody set up and get their homes hardened. There's a lot of discussion about home hardening. You can find information about that on our website. You can find it on Ventura County, LA County. Every fire department in California has a wealth of information on the subject. So check that out. We started with some discussion about insurance, which is, of course, something on the top of everybody's mind because of the expense of it in the wildland interface area. Hopefully, we can get the insurance commissioner. I talked to the LA representative today and about asking Commissioner Lara to join us in the future, and he reminded me to talk to another lady who had arranged it before, and it kind of fell through. So we're going to try to get him out here onto our town hall as soon as possible because I think the insurance rules are settling finally, and they're not just a wish list. So that'll be important for everybody in the area. Other than that, if you're not connected to us yet and you have a homeowners association out there and you're in the wildland interface, please contact us. Send an email. My email could be up at any time. Otherwise, I'll put it in a chat. Send me an email and we'll get you the information you need to get started. And we hope you'll start soon before things get kind of hairy out there.
Thank you very much, Carl. So to review what Carl was talking about, we have HOAs that have completed or are near completion of their workbooks related to becoming a fire safe council. We're doing hazard drive-arounds in each one of these HOAs to see what the risks are and what the threats are and how people are concerned. We're scheduling threat assessments, which follows the NFPA's threat assessment form and allows you to kind of progress forward, and not only from the insurance point of view, but from the Firewise and Fire Safe Council point of view. We're going to have a number of public safety fairs in the fall, and that means that we have a number of HOAs representing more than 12,000 homes and 30,000 people that are very close to getting Fire Safe Council status. And that's, I think, a pretty important thing for us and something that we're looking forward to. So we're making progress this summer. So the big question is for everyone tonight is, could the Maui fires happen in Los Angeles? And there's a number of factors that play into that. And then we're going to talk about some of those things. And then we're going to have someone from Maui join us and tell us firsthand what they're learning and what they're seeing, and give us some input that might be valuable for us. Let's start by talking about things that we do not have in common with Maui. I think this is a very important thing if we're trying to create kind of that Ben Franklin list of things that are true or not true or in common or not common, what have you. So building composition is in many cases not the same. And it isn't to say that buildings in Maui are not built as well. In many cases, they're just much older and they were built to different standards. But the building composition between Maui structures that are more than 50 years old, not necessarily new ones, because there's plenty of those, and LA structures, even if they're 50 years old, is different. The emergency response in Maui is more geared for things like hurricanes and rain and stuff than it is for fire. One of the challenges when you're on an island is you can't just call other resources in and have them drive over. So Carl, for example, was in Ventura today. If there's a fire along the Ventura LA County border, you're going to get Ventura County, LA City, any number of other entities sending support in either mutual aid or in support of other agreements that allow us to quickly multiply the number of resources available to fight a wildfire. When you're on an island, you don't have that same opportunity. So the response is not the same. And as a result, fire resources are more limited in Maui. The climate is different. Maui is known, and I think we'll have our guest talk a little bit about how the weather actually operates right where he lives, but tropical conditions are different than the varied climate that we have in California. Disaster warning systems are more digital in California for the most part, although that's changing over time. And most importantly, Los Angeles is far more segmented. I mean, we have more than 4 million people living here now, more than 1 million people who work in the city every day. There's 78 different languages spoken, 178 neighborhoods. It's a hectic, busy environment that doesn't have any of the community commonality that community exists in Maui. So let's talk about some things briefly that we have in common with Maui. And these are the key issues for us to think about as we move forward. There is large and expanding brush and vegetation growth. I mean, and for many, many reasons. In California, we had a tremendous amount of rain in the beginning of the year. It looks like we're going to get some significant rain this Sunday and Monday as a result of a tropical storm nearby. That changes the dynamic. How? It changes it in that we have much more fuel, much more rapidly. The exposure to wind as a result. One of the things that occurred in Maui was a tremendous wind-driven fire. And when that happens and fire is moving at 60 miles an hour, you clearly can't outrun it. You often can't outdrive it if you're on a twisty, windy road. And there are plenty of twisty, windy roads on the island of Maui, as well as here in Los Angeles. There's a lot of above ground electrical and communication utilities, old wooden power poles, old wiring, stuff that's not necessarily well maintained on both the island of Maui and here. And this may be the most important thing. There is and has been a false sense of security. When you live on the Hawaiian Islands, you live in Hawaii, and everyone wants to go to Hawaii so they can enjoy the culture of Hawaii and the laid back atmosphere. But that means that people in Hawaii are like, hey, we're good. Everything's fine. In California, we're very aware of wildfires, but 2022 wasn't a big wildfire year, and we tend to have short memories. So if you ask people, and we have been asking people about wildfire, they don't really think of one. And if they do think of one, they think about the Camp Fire in Northern California that ripped through the town of Paradise. I mention that because the Paradise Fire has a number of things in common with the Lahaina Fire. And we can talk about that a little bit later, but that false sense of security is probably the thing that worries our folks the most, because it's important that we get people to act. And I'm grateful for everyone that is here tonight because you're here to hopefully learn more about what needs to happen so that your home can be better protected. And by the way, if you take the steps that insurance is requiring, that we're talking about, that the brush code requires, you will greatly reduce the risk to your family, to firefighters who respond to a wind-driven or terrain-driven fire, and ultimately come out the other side, hopefully, much safer and without the same level of drama. So that lack of wildfire preparedness, despite multiple warnings, is the kind of thing that happens here in California and has happened very substantially on the island of Maui. And that's a really important thing for us to be aware of. These are a couple of images from Maui last week. The lower right-hand side from Haina, vehicles burning. And for me, the most dramatic one is the large image because it just looks like hell on earth. It is fire as far as you can see. Everything is burning, and it gives you a really unfortunate look at how dramatic and how powerful and how damaging a fire like that can be. So I wasn't there, and everything that I've heard has been not necessarily third hand, but most of us have had third hand information through the media, through something that we read or something that we see on television or on social media or on YouTube or something like that. We're going to learn a little bit more about why what you're looking at has happened and what it means and how it affects average, ordinary people who live on the Big Island. Before we get there, let's talk about a couple of key facts. And when I say facts, these are things that are kind of known issues. They're not necessarily debatable. I mean, you can if you want, but these are things that are happening and that science is telling us. So a number of scientists have weighed in from UCLA, from the University of Hawaii, and other places saying that climate change itself was not the most significant impact on the Maui wildfires. It played a role, but not the most significant impact. And a lot of people have just said, well, is it climate change or it's not climate change? Another key fact that's indirectly related to that is that grass growth, vegetation growth on the islands have been excessive. And you'll see when we get into our fall weather projection in a little bit how this has affected Hawaii. But invasive grasses, they truly are invasive. Indigenous plants and vegetation, they exist for a reason because of where they are. We have them in California, they exist in Hawaii, but if you bring in other species from other places, they tend to take over like rats take over a ship. And most invasive grasses are extremely flammable. And FEMA is coming to the early conclusion that the Maui wildfires were very much impacted by these invasive grasses. Another key fact, which we touched on a minute ago, power lines are often above ground and not properly maintained. That means if there are heavy winds, that there's the risk of sparking or other kinds of failure, which leads to fire. We have very specific proven instances of that in California, and utility companies have been forced to pay substantial amounts of money, and they're looking at moving all of their power lines underground. But at the same time, we do have the issue of dealing with the idea that a lot of power lines and other communications lines are still above ground. And finally, here, wind. So the measurement devices on the islands measured up to 67 miles an hour, but video and other evidence, and you'll hear about this in a few minutes, suggested that the speeds were actually much higher than that. And one of the things that's most important about a wind-driven wildfire is not only the fact that it can create its own weather, but also the fact what are maximum wind speeds. The maximum wind speeds, for example, up north that affected the Camp Fire and the town of Paradise are very unlikely to happen in Southern California in terms of the maximum wind speeds. It's not impossible, it could happen, but it's less likely to happen here. But wind is a huge issue when we're talking about wildfire. So I'd like to introduce our guest, Robert Masters from Best Media. He's a Maui resident for many, many years. He's a community leader there, and he's a He's a really interesting person. He is a filmmaker, an Emmy Award-winning filmmaker. He's in the Windsurfing Hall of Fame, and he runs a building supply business. He has a farm, which is a wonderful thing to have, and is very plugged into all aspects of what's going on there. And it's just a joy to spend time with him. I've known Robert since I was a wee lad, and I think that he is a really interesting person to listen to. Pay no attention to the accent because he did come from Great Britain background and grew up in Malta, but he is a wonderful guy to listen to, and he's here to talk to us about what's going on in Maui. Welcome, Robert.
Thank you, David, for that very kind introduction. And also, please pay no attention to the community leader slate that is adorning your screen right now, because I'm not a community leader, but just happy and proud to be a member of the community. So it's a pleasure to be here.
So, Robert, tell us your story. Tell us what's going on over there.
Mm. Um, well, it's been a heck of 9 days. It's we're all very much in the twilight zone. Um, this is the picture that you're seeing right now is a photograph I took from our deck here in Kula, where fires were burning out of control at the end of our street. Um, at the time, we had no idea what was going on because up country, the first thing that happened when the wind started to blow were the power lines went down, and the next thing we saw was black smoke in the area above our street. But beyond that, all the communication was cut off, and we heard a couple of text messages from some friends near Lahaina that some buildings were burning, and that was very worrying. Um, and we saw flames. This picture here shows flames downhill from us, but we also had flames uphill from us, and so we were very unclear as to what we may have to do if evacuation were necessary, because both pathways to get out were possibly blocked. So we surveyed the situation, drove around, saw what was going on, and it was horrific. And then the next day we um, started to get more and more information to learn what had happened in Lahaina, and yeah, we're all in a state of shock. We're still in a situation where we don't even know if some of our friends are laying in those ashes that you're seeing there. We know that many of our friends and colleagues have lost everything: homes, the boats, businesses, and it's tragic. It's tragic, and it happened so fast. Um, as David mentioned, I guess there are official reports of up to 67 miles an hour at Kula Lodge, just up the road from us. Wind meters up there were reporting 80-mile-an-hour gusts, and our friends over in Lahaina, who live upwind of where the storms, where the winds blew, and they got to see firsthand the destruction. Um, as avid water sports people with lots of wind gathering material on their rooftops, they were measuring 100-mile-an-hour gusts.
Wow, that's a lot.
Yeah, it was huge. And the footage that we've seen showing the sparks and the flames going through town is there's no downward thrust to it. It's just all sideways push. It's like somebody's set some jet engines down at the end of the road and set off flamethrowers. So nobody was going to stand a chance in that. So yeah, we're dealing with that situation, and the aftermath is that we're just seeing the most amazing response from people. Over here in Hawaii, there's a word that goes around the world: aloha. A lot of people think that it's a greeting, and it is. But it's a feeling. It's something that cuts to the core of Hawaiian beliefs and values. And in a situation like this, we're seeing everyone, instead of thinking me, they're thinking we. And instead of riots, down at places for people to scramble to get supplies. We've had riots of a different kind where people have gone in to Costco and Home Depot with their credit cards and literally bought up everything in the stores. And then, one way or another, however, whether it's boat, plane, driving vehicles around areas that haven't been blocked by police, they're getting these supplies into the affected communities, working 20-hour plus days nonstop. And they have managed to deliver so many supplies. We as a community have delivered so many supplies in these past days that a couple of days ago, the local charity said, okay, stop, we're good. We've got enough shoes, we've got enough clothes, we've got enough blankets, we've got enough food, we've got enough water. In fact, we got way too much. The next challenge we need to figure out is where are we going to put all this stuff? And so, I believe there's dozens of containers of aid coming in from various countries. And so, yeah, it's been just amazing to see the support and the goodwill that has come from the local community and everyone who has been hearing and reading about this. I've had friends asking me, okay, how can I donate? And I'm saying, okay, donate to the Red Cross or donate to the local food banks. And they go, okay, great, I've done that. Now tell me some good GoFundMe pages. I want to donate to some of those guys too. And there's so many GoFundMe pages now set up with deserving people who have lost everything. And so they're getting help from people directly. And it's amazing. It's amazing to see. I don't think I've ever seen anything like it. I've lived a life where, like so many of you, we've witnessed tragedies from around the world and seen good people coming together doing amazing things. And what is happening here is just the perfect example of humanity and goodness of spirit. It's been wonderful. It's a I
Robert,
feel.
Robert, what's the term for a corner Costco?
I'm sorry.
The term you said when we were talking about this, that there were corner Costco's because
Oh yes, the Kanaka Costco on every corner. Yeah. So yeah, I one of the things that has been frustrating to local people, and it's yet again it happens every time there's a disaster. It takes a while for large agencies to jump into action, especially when you're on an island. Things don't happen overnight, especially when local authorities might not be geared up and ready to prepare to move as quickly as some people would like. Um, so, with this influx of help from local communities and with these amazing people with boats, every boater that I know, whether they're windsurfers, surfers, um, diving expedition operators, they've made their boats available, driving up and down the coast all the time, fuel at their expense, dropping off these supplies. And so now there are so many supplies up in Lahaina in certain areas that in parking lots and what have you, that, yeah, there was a joke going around recently. It's like, no need to show up with supplies. We've got a Kanaka Costco on every corner. Yeah, yet again, just so amazing that people have done so much to set up these areas where we can start distributing materials to people in need. And yeah, God bless all those people. I'm humbled to be a part of their community.
how has this motivated you to better protect your own land and property?
Hmm. Well, I'll say that we've all been living in in a state of collective bliss and ignorance, and it's stupid because the signs have been here for years since the sugar and pineapple industries shut down years ago. What used to be well managed and tended lands, and in the case of the sugar industry, they would do regular controlled burns. And these were the fields that were located above in the hills above Lahaina and throughout the main valley um, in central Maui. And so these fields have become fallow, and they are now filled with guinea grass, or we call locally cane grass. And these grasses were brought in for ranching applications. And some of these grasses can grow up to 6 inches per day. And on our 3 acre orchard up here, it's an ongoing challenge to keep these grasses under control. So these grasses are everywhere. And so we've had this situation where we know about the grasses, we've known about the overhead power lines, but for me, I was still guilty of thinking, okay, well, the grasses are a bit long. It will help keep the ground cool during the summer months. So that holds more moisture, and this is good for our farm. But yes, on last Wednesday is just the stark realization that we don't live in this tropical moist paradise on these sides of the island, on the leeward side of the islands that don't get rain. Our climate is more Mediterranean and Californian. And when I look at the fields next to me, I've got a 10,000 acre ranch next to us. I look out there, it looks more like the fields around Sacramento in August than Hawaii. There's no green anywhere. So if somebody sparks a fire accidentally with an exhaust line or an errant firework or something, um, a lot of communities up here could be in peril. So the lessons I've learned is get the weed whacker out, start cutting down those grasses, start protecting the areas immediately around the house, and think more about hardscaping more and more of these areas. I'm also looking into recladding our main home, which was clad with, or is clad with, cedar shake, probably the worst material one could ever build a house with, and replace it with some sort of cementitious fiberboard or something that is more of a fire-rated system. And then for our roofs, we're actually just finished putting on a roof on one of our cottages and about to put a roof on our carport. And those are both going to be Class A fire-rated systems.
So this is really important stuff for people to recognize, and certainly in your case, I mean, you're dealing with this as a direct after effect of a fire that could have burned your home,
Yeah.
um, the Kula fire, and you're taking some steps which obviously will make your home and property more protected. What about what about the island overall? What do you think happens next in term? We all know that there's going to be a big effort to rebuild things and to change things,
Mhm.
but what changes, if anything, do you see in community? Will a lot of people leave? Will people stay? What will happen?
Yeah. Well, it's a fairly unique situation, or maybe it's not. We see it that way. But it's going to be a lot of challenges. One thing that was interesting was how quickly we managed to get or are getting the housing situation under control. I think in the minds of many people, it was like, okay, we need to create tent villages and we need to bring in some cruise ships and dock them off the coast. But in my mind, it might be completely wrong. But I'm thinking that between the hotels and the VRBOs, if enough of those transition to long-term housing support, that we can get people under roofs in a nice way. And I'm already hearing that happening from some friends who are in hotels and in a good situation with regard to that. So short term, I think we're doing quite well in certain situations, but I'm sure there are many, many people whose needs are not being addressed yet for one reason or another. So I'm just speaking as a vague generalization. Moving forward, it's going to be very interesting because Hawaii is such a desirable place for so many people, and overseas investors um, really enjoy coming here and buying second homes or developing large resorts. Um, and so, one of the things that's going to happen is there's going to be a big push by international developers and large conglomerates to try to jump in and power buy this neighborhood and snatch up the properties. But they're going to be met with a lot of fierce resistance from local Hawaiian communities. Many people are saying, number one, this is not a tourist town. This is a centuries old community with roots as deep as they come. And there are many, many people who are ready to fight to preserve that lifestyle and that culture and not see the place turn from a place where so many wonderful people have lived in this community and turn it into a bunch of McMansions for rich overseas investors. So this is going to be one of the big challenges. The other challenge is going to be finding the balance between respect and commerce. Right now, we're an island grieving, but at the same time, we're also an island struggling to get back from a COVID related recession, with many people still struggling to make ends meet. And so, how to meet the needs of people who are asking for respect and to also meet the needs of the people who are saying, please come here, we need your tourist dollars. So that's going to be something that many people are discussing over the coming days and weeks. Um, as for West Maui and how things work out with the resorts next to Lahaina, it'll obviously be more challenging than maybe Kihei or Wailea, which are quite a few miles away from the Lahaina area and still have services, grocery stores, gas stations, and what have you. So, in realistically, those areas could start to um, welcome visitors again soon. Um, but it's just a matter of showing respect. I just heard the other day of some people up snorkeling and swimming around the Lahaina area, and it's so upsetting to see these two worlds where one group of people are there just trying to have fun and sip a mai tai and watch a sunset, and other people are grieving for lost family members and missing family members, and it's like, oh, wait, hold on, show some respect. So that's going to be challenging. Finding jobs for people in the long term. We've got a community that um, employed many, many, many people. So where we're going to find jobs for those people, it's going to be a big challenge. And also where a lot of the people who provided services to the area, the tradesmen, the people who worked in the resorts, the electricians, plumbers, dentists, healthcare providers, vets, they're all gone and they don't have anywhere to work from. And so these are going to present huge logistical challenges for that part of the island. Um, I
Can
think
you
I'm
tell
probably over.
us? Can you tell us a little bit from your perspective about um, what was the response from firefighters? And,
Hmm,
and and I'm asking that from the perspective that in Los Angeles, as an example, the LA City Fire Department has 106 fire stations. LA County has double that. There's a whole series of ways in which people can respond. Maui is an island, and there was a fire burning before the fire that ripped through Lahaina. So, what can you tell us about how firefighters typically respond, and what was your experience, even from a distance, on what happened last week?
okay. Um, well, number one, we hold all of the fire departments in the highest regard out here. And we see every one of them as the true heroes that they are. Um, and I believe that they're also understaffed true heroes. I don't have an exact number on that, but I believe that the number of firefighters here locally in the community is literally in the dozens, 60, 70, but please don't quote me on this. But apparently it's not enough. Um, so what supposedly happened, and this is all third party here, is that there was a fire above Lahaina early in the morning, maybe around 7 or so in the morning. And it was um, the sort of event where schools were closed, and I think the school children were told to go home. I think the fire department quickly showed up, and it was supposedly 100% contained. At that point, soon after, I believe there were the other fires that started in Olinda and Kula. And I think that it might have been a situation where awkward decisions might having to be made as to whether to stay on station with a fire that was supposedly contained, or leave the site and go to fight a fire that was absolutely zero contained. So this is what I'm hearing. As I say, I don't know what the exact situation is, but then I hear that that fire possibly flared up again, and that's when all hell broke loose. And and the local fear is that many of the people who are in the buildings who have not yet been searched and the victims identified may be some of the children who got sent home from school. So it's yeah, it's difficult.
What about emergency communications?
Uh, well, the emergency communication system. There are a lot of people that will say that it failed them. We have sirens that up here in Kula we hear every month on the first day of the month at 11:30. They test them out so we know they're running. Um, so yeah, everyone expected to hear sirens and nobody heard sirens. Um, and my wife today was listening to NPR and apparently was hearing that one of the local emergency chiefs apparently is resigning today for quote health reasons. But apparently on his way out the door was explaining that those siren systems are intended expressly for tsunamis, and that the fear was that if the sirens had been sounded, that people would run uphill into the fires. And yet again, this is all hearsay. I don't know if there's truth to this, but these are some of the stories that are coming out of the island and was being reported on the radio today. As far as different responses, I don't hear any criticism about fire department. I believe that there's certain frustrations at some of the police roadblocks that were set up in and around town at the time, and a lot of uncertainty as to why some of those blocks were being enforced as vehemently as they were, and apparently as selectively as they were. So there's a lot of questions regarding that, and yeah, in conjunction with that, I have several personal reports of friends literally running through the streets to get past cars that were jammed and couldn't get forward or backwards with people trapped inside them. And yet again, hellish situation where I think there's going to be a lot of questions asked. I think also another area where there's going to be scrutiny focused is going to be on the mayor's office because I think a lot of people look to his office to be the people who act the quickest, and apparently there was a lack of contact to authorities on Oahu, and so to speak to your point about the fact that communities on Los Angeles, one fire department can get over to another one. Well, we can island hop. And from what I could see on our local news, it wasn't until 4 days after the fire that I was seeing firefighters from Oahu taking photographs of themselves in front of an airplane which was about to take off for Maui. It's like 4 days. Why not 4 hours? So, I think a lot of these questions are questions that might be or will be getting asked. The Attorney General's office is already getting involved, and I think that there might be independent counsels also getting involved too, because there are a lot of questions that people are asking, and also when you see like this one photograph here, these photographs of people supplying goods, it's like, oh, that's interesting because I'm not seeing any officials. And you can look at dozens and dozens. Well, the top right is obviously FEMA with their search dogs. But as far as the moving of materials for the first 4 days, there, according to the people who were moving the materials around, there were no officials to help. In fact, they felt that they were a hindrance by not letting a lot of the supply vehicles through. So a lot of frustration there. I don't know the actual facts because I wasn't sitting at the police roadblocks. So I can only share the stories and from what I've heard and seen in these increasing number of videos that are being shown on YouTube and social media.
So, a good transition here to questions. I mean, you're talking about the community members there asking lots of questions. Some of our folks have questions. And we're gonna, if you want to ask a question, you can either write it in the chat or you can raise your hand and we'll let you speak. But let me just share a few with Robert quickly. Patricia asks, what are the construction differences between a building in Lahaina, for example, and perhaps a 1950s 2% one stucco composition roof building? And you have some experience with construction, so maybe you could share a little bit.
Yeah, it's a very good question. Thank you. Um, yeah, part of the challenges that Lahaina faces is in large part because of its history. The town, if you Google it and read about what was going on in that whaling village back in the early 1800s, it's a community that was built very close to the shoreline, and the infrastructure was designed, in the way that might have been considered modernistic for the day. And then as the town grew over the centuries, it, there were a lot of the construction, most of the construction is old wood. I would imagine that a large or a big percentage of the buildings have lead paint, asbestos, all sorts of VOCs, and the the challenges that we as a community face just cleaning this area up and figuring out where are we going to put all this stuff, because it's a small island. I don't think anyone's really figured that one out yet, or if they have, I haven't heard about it. But yeah, the materials used, mainly wood, old materials, old technologies, and unlike in the city of Los Angeles, where the city have been really good in looking at old materials such as lead paints and asbestos and being really proactive and super careful in how these materials are removed. I don't think that level of sophistication has existed over here on Maui.
In a related sense, can you tell us about what kind of smoke damage has existed in homes that were not burned? And what about air quality?
Hmm. Um, um, don't know about the situation with smoke in houses that weren't destroyed. Um, I haven't had that sort of detail shared with me. It's more been a situation of just seeing these images like you guys have seen, where it's the building has either been destroyed or not. But as for what sort of toxic fumes may have gone into some of the houses that survived or the buildings that survived, that's a very good question. It's going to probably be something that people should want to look at before they go in there and start breathing too much of it. Um, and similarly, it's something that so many people need to be aware of, because on the one hand, you see people like Josh Green trying to, doing his on camera uh, uh, appearances on TV, walking around these ashes and smoke rising, and he's not wearing a mask. And it's like, oh, hold on. No, I know you want to see your face seen, but you need to be sending out a different message to the general public that these are not safe places to be walking around right now. And the short and long term health risks are very much unknown.
That's true. They are.
Or
Um,
maybe they are known but being ignored. But
that's possible
yeah.
too. What about, you talked about how difficult it is to keep grasses from, I mean, that can grow 6 inches a day, keeping that
Mhm.
under control. Over here, we often are able to use sheep or goats. And once we've cleared areas, we kind of replant them often with different kinds of vegetation. What's your opinion about the use of animals, for example, to clear or to reduce the natural weed whackers, so to speak?
Absolutely. Well, it was interesting. On Tuesday, I called the manager of the Ka'anolu Ranch, which is next door to us, 10,000 acres ranch, and their pastures are um, uh, segmented in so that the fields get to rest at certain times, and then they'll bring the cattle in and eat the grasses, and then they let them rest again. And so there's a cycle of where and when these cattle will be in different locations. And so, as the cycle happens right now, and this is not just based upon whim, it's also based upon the ability to move cows who have just started calving or whatever. There's a lot of technical aspects behind moving cattle. And so the word from the ranch is, okay, well, we're chewing down this part of the grass now, and then we're going to be over near the Hawaiian homesteads next. We're going to chew that down, and then we're going to be over near you, and we're going to chew that down. But it doesn't all happen at once. But the gentleman was kind enough to offer me a couple of his cows just in case I needed some grass cutting activities on our 3 acres. That's the sort of community spirit that we have. So, Rob, do you need some cows? No, I'm good, Ken. Thank you. I'll just use the weed whacker. Um, but no, that's what they're up to. Yes, the use of animals are huge. It's a great way to go. So to control the main fields, get the animals out, to control the perimeter areas, create either hardened areas or whatever it takes to get it so that we don't have grass. It's literally on the edge of these communities and our homes. This is something that if the community can learn from, it will save future homes, probably save more lives. And the same thing that you touched on earlier with regard to the power lines. While nothing is confirmed over here, when I hear reports, firsthand reports of 30 or more, this was like the day after the storm, I was already hearing about 30 different power lines that were live, that were downed by the side of the streets, sparking away. So it's we'll do a little presuming for now. We do have occasional instances of arson and mistakes caused by farm equipment, but the what we're seeing right now, and if you see images of how the power lines were swinging around wildly during these winds, it's I think there'll be a lot of investigation going into that, and if we can find the budget to build to put our power lines underground while we're finding $6 billion to build a town because we didn't have power lines underground, that'll be good.
What about profiteers, people who are taking advantage of Maui residents in terms of either offering them help that really isn't help or trying to buy their properties at very low prices and that sort of thing?
Yeah, the sharks are out there and they're all playing the game and on the level that they understand. And it's really sad to see. So, yeah, the realty speculators are out there, the developer speculators are out there, and the faux charities are out there. I just seen several in the past couple of days. One was promoting Maui Jim sunglasses and offering huge discounts and even bigger percentage of the proceeds to the victims of the Hawaii fires. And it only took one Google search on a scam website to see that they were up near the top of the list. And similarly, people love the dog owners, and so there's numerous websites out there on the internet going, buy this or donate that, and we'll give the money to the Maui Humane Society. And you look at the asterisks, footnotes, and all profits, blah blah blah. So what's the profits? How much are you taking in your salary? And why people don't you just donate to MauiHumaneSociety.org, cut out the middleman, and get on with your day. So yeah, it's really frustrating to see. So many people are trying to take advantage. But the beautiful thing is that I think a lot of people are smart. And I actually saw an interview with one of the local gentlemen from Molokai who had taken his heard about the fires, or saw the fires, jumped on his boat, started doing ferries day in and day out, and he was commenting on how sometimes too much education can end up with you not really knowing too much, and the suggestion being that street smarts can get you a long way. And I think we're dealing with a lot of street smart people who are seen a lot going on in their lives and over the past generations, much of it at their expense. And I think you're going to see a beautiful, determined local population doing everything in their power to make sure that the people of Lahaina get back to be in a situation where their lives are as good, if not better, than they were before. That is the most important thing to so many of us. And for me, I live here, but I'm not Hawaiian. I'm essentially just a long-term tourist with a heart that belongs to Hawaii. And so, we all stand in a place that we want to see the right thing done.
It's awesome. Does anyone else have questions for Robert? If you do, raise your hand and we'll listen to you. Otherwise, we'll thank Robert. We'll move on to the next part of our evening. Anyone else have a question? All right, good. Robert, thank you. Very informative, helpful to us. And we're going to talk a little bit more now about whether this sort of thing can happen here. But I think we got a good picture about what's going on there. And I hope you stay safe and that your wife, Mary, stays safe and that you're able to participate in making Maui whole once again. Thanks very much.
Well, yeah, thank you for given me this opportunity to share these thoughts with you. And also, I want to thank any of you who may be donating to the Maui cause. Every little thing helps because even though we've got our Kanaka Costco's going, we need help. We need so much help. And so God bless you all for your assistance.
Okay, so the big question that this all leads to, now that we've heard a little bit more about this, is, is this the sort of thing that can happen here? And there's a couple of things that we should be thinking about. Our canyons are filled with fuel. They're beautiful to drive through, but they are, without a doubt, they are overgrown. They are easily dried out. One of our next guests in the next couple of months is going to talk about how these fuels are heated by the sun. And depending on which way the hills face, whether it's morning sun or afternoon sun, and how these oily, flashy fuels can ignite. But we were in a situation where there is so much lush vegetation that can die quickly that the risk of fire, it remains and in fact is increasing in many ways, shapes, and form. So here's our significant risks as it relates to Los Angeles. Significant fuel load. You just saw some images about that. A lot of canyons with tight, narrow roads. I mean, if there's a traffic accident on Laurel Canyon Boulevard, the entire canyon is jammed up. If the same thing happens on Coldwater Canyon or Nichols Canyon or any of the canyons there, if you live on Beechwood and you're underneath the Hollywood sign, you're struggling with tourists and all those folks that want to get up in there, what if something goes wrong there? How are people going to get out? If you live in Mandeville Canyon, which is one of the areas that we're most concerned about, unless you use a fire road, which you're not supposed to do, so residents shouldn't be thinking about fire roads as a method of egress. There's only one way out. So these are all things that we need to think about because they are hindrances in our ability to be safer. Windy conditions. We do have Santa Ana winds, and there are days when it's just terrible. When the Bel Air fire took place, 1961, 480 homes destroyed in a matter of hours. When the Sayre fire occurred in the northern San Fernando Valley, the Oak Ridge Mobile Home Park, 489 homes destroyed in just a matter of hours, primarily because of the ferocity of wind, heat, and fire-generated weather. Again, we've talked about the false sense of security. I don't want to belabor that, but it's a factor here in Los Angeles. There is a lack of wildfire preparedness. Carl, myself, our team, we've been meeting with homeowners associations throughout Los Angeles. And the HOAs themselves understand what's going on, and they're working diligently to make themselves more aware and to work with us to be better prepared and more resilient. The big challenge that all of us have is getting individual homeowners to pay attention and to get individual homeowners to take the necessary steps. If you properly harden your home, meaning that you have made it much more resistant to ember casts entering the home at any level, that you've made the windows more resistant to shattering with fire heat, that you make the roof materials more resistant to fire, you cut the chance of that home burning in half. And if you're able to combine that with hardening not only the home, but the landscape, we call it defensible space, making certain that there's no low-hanging fruit, so to speak, for a wildfire or an ember cast to attach itself to, you could be reducing the threat of your home and being destroyed by up to 75%. These are not my numbers. These are state and federal numbers based on many studies conducted not only in California, but in other places. And we'll talk about that a little bit more in a few minutes, but overall, the lack of wildfire preparedness on the individual homeowner level is the most significant threat. It's a much greater threat than lush landscape and vegetation growth. Vegetation can burn, and the outcome will be that new vegetation grows. If your home burns down, a new home doesn't build itself. So it's extremely important to understand that there's a difference between nature burning and your home burning. And so we want to help people get their homes hardened, to get their property properly defended. The next thing that's important to think about when we think about could this happen here is that there are increasing examples of what we would call disaster wildfires. The Maui wildfires of last week certainly fall into that category. The Dixie Fire in 2021, the Bay Area fires in 2020, the Camp Fire that absolutely ravaged Paradise and has many comparisons to Maui, and the Tubbs Fire in California. These are just in the last 7 years. So we're seeing a disaster wildfire nearly every single year. And it's not just in California. We're seeing disastrous levels of wildfires around the world. Right now, the number one place for wildfires in the world is in Canada. You've read the stories and seen news things about the Northeast, even as far south as New York, where wildfire smoke is creating extremely hazardous breathing conditions hundreds of miles away from where these fires are occurring. If you take a look at a Canadian wildfire map, I didn't put one in here, I probably should have. It looks unbelievable that there are so many fires burning. In Greece, people have been getting killed left and right by their wildfires ravaging the countryside and lots of smaller towns. Same thing is true in Australia, in Africa, in Italy. More and more places around the world are suffering these catastrophic fires. So is Los Angeles next? And the answer is, even independent of Maui, we are at increasing risk for having a disaster wildfire in Los Angeles. And the reason I've just outlined, it isn't magic and it isn't hyperbole. It's just looking at what happens. I'm not asking you guys to drive around neighborhoods in your cars, but if you did, you would see enough signs that people are not doing what they need to do. And these are simple things. Don't stack firewood against your house. It's a very simple thing. Keep your gutters cleaned out. And if you can, get covering for your gutters so that the detritus won't get in there. Only water will get in there. These are not expensive things to do. So our workshops that we're working on and our public safety fairs are going to be extremely important for individual homeowners to take care of things. And let's talk a little bit more about individual homeowners as it relates to insurance, because there's some big changes taking place in the world of insurance. And I think it's probably an important thing for all of us to understand exactly what these changes mean. So starting on the 23rd of this month, the California Fair Plan is going to be offering a new method of offering discounts to individual homeowners. So that's extremely good news, because if we've been looking at insurance providers like State Farm and Allstate and so on suspending issuing new policies, and some other companies abandoning the state, and other smaller companies actually going bankrupt, the insurance issues are dramatic. So if the Fair Plan, which is the insurance policy of last resort, is going to start offering discounts because it is very expensive, then that's really good news. The Caveat is that if you're going to get the discounts, then you have to qualify your home and property. So there are two types of discounts: an immediate surroundings discount that relates to defensible space. And then there's a structural discount that relates to home hardening. One thing that is not often talked about, but that is true and is extremely important for everyone to know, is that these discounts are in addition to any discounts for a community that becomes a Firewise USA registered site. So if you're already getting 5%, for example, as a Firewise community, you may be able to earn a significant amount on top of that, not instead of, but on top of that. So what does this mean relative to surrounding discounts? How do you qualify? Cleared vegetation and debris from under your decks. Removable of combustible shed and other outbuildings from the immediate surrounding of your home, at least going out to the 30-foot zone. And defensible space compliance, which means trim your trees. Get your landscaper or gardener in and have them take care of the things that comply with local and state law. Los Angeles has a very specific fire code. It's very easy to read and understand. If you need a copy of it, it's in our website. And these are not necessarily expensive things to do. Now, you will have your home inspected, and we'll talk in October about home inspections. But right now, understand that you can't just say that you've done these things. You have to be able to demonstrate that you've done these things. But if you have, you can qualify for this type of a discount. As far as structural discounts go, the same thing is true. And I want to go through these things, but also then share some important wraparound information that will be helpful to people. A Class A fire-rated roof. Robert is in Maui is going to be replacing his roofs with Class A roofs. Maintaining a 5-foot ember-resistant zone around the house. We've learned, and we've talked about this in past meetings, that when an ember cast hits a home and those embers bounce away from the home, if they bounce away more than 5 feet, they typically go out. But when they land within 5 feet, they stay ignited, and they ignite other things in that zone, like wood piles or toys or lawn furniture or whatever it may be. Keeping a non-combustible space 6 inches at the bottom of your exterior walls, making sure that you have proper vents that are ember resistant. Upgraded windows. If you are able to add double paned windows, you will greatly reduce the chance of those windows exploding when there is substantial heat from a wildfire outside of the structure. If a window shatters due to the heat from a wildfire, that will create a draft inviting flame and or embers directly into the home, and then you know what will happen. I don't need to share that with you. And enclosed eaves. We're going to talk a little bit more about this. We're going to have a complete booklet available in our website that goes through each one of these issues. Now, having said that, on both defensible space and home hardening and with the California Fair Plan, you do not need to comply with all of these items. What you need to do is have your home rated 1 through 10 relative to what you can do. So you may earn a much better discount if you can do all of these things, but if you could only, for example, maintain the 5-foot ember resistant zone, have vents and enclosed eaves, that will still give you a rating that gives you some level of discount. So it's really important for everyone to understand that it isn't doing everything, it's doing some things. Taking one step at a time. We understand that some of these things are expensive, and it's a very, very touchy thing. And keep in mind, we know that more than 80% of the homes in California are underinsured against wildfire. So if people are spending $5,000, $6,000, $7,000 a month on fire insurance, then it would probably make sense for them to spend $5,000 or $6,000 on reducing the threat, so they could perhaps save that same amount of money annually when we're talking about some of these discounts. So that's, I think, a really important aspect. And before I move on, I want to ask if anyone has questions about insurance or anything that we've just talked about relative to the risk in LA. This would be a good time for you to ask questions. Carl and I would be happy to take them from you. If you have specific questions, we'll give you a moment to either put it in the chat or to raise your hand and you can talk to us. And yeah, Patricia asks, do you really need eaves? Well, you need eaves that are enclosed because it's a great place for embers to gather. and for heat to build up. So if you have that, then you definitely want to make sure that you've got that type of protection for your home. Anyone else with a question? If not, we will move on. Okay, let's move on. So the 2023 wildfires.
Hello? Hello?
Raise your hand if you have a question. No, there's a digital hand on Zoom that allows you to raise that. I see you now, so you could go ahead and speak. But there's a protocol we follow so that we can find people. Go ahead and ask your question.
How do we get our homes rated?
It's a very good question. You will be able to apply for a rating on the California Fair Plan website, and then your home will be inspected. And the first thing you do, though, is you fill out a form which indicates what steps you've taken. And as I just explained, if you can't do everything, well, that makes sense. But for the things that you can do, you'll fill out that form, submit it, and then they will follow up with you. Let me ask you a question. Are you currently on the California Fair Plan?
Yes.
Okay, so if you are, within the next couple of weeks, if you have not already, you will receive a letter from the state which will tell you exactly what to do. So
okay.
Anyone on the Fair Plan should receive a letter, but you can also go to their website.
Thank you.
You're welcome, absolutely. Okay, so this is the wildland outlook for August of this year. And anything in red is above normal, and anything in green is below normal, and everything in white is, based on where you are in the country, normal. And if we look at Alaska, we think of it being cold and snowy up there, but the entire eastern side of the state is in extreme danger from wildland fire potential. If we look at Hawaii, every single island is in extreme danger for August and September relative to that. For most of California, we're normal right now. We're in a normal condition. And this is from the National Interagency Fire Center, which is based in Boise, Idaho. They do a monthly analysis and publish it. We're going to start publishing this every month as well, so you can see exactly what's going on. But the big question is what does normal mean? When we look back at the last 7 years and all of the fires that have taken place, if we look at the last 20 years at all of the major fires that have occurred in California, and we can look even further back. We can look at the Bel Air fire, we can look at the Oakland Hills fire, we can look at any number of fires. Those in the 60s through the 90s were anomalies. They were like Paradise, or they were like Lahaina. Monster fires that don't happen all the time. But now all of a sudden, these monster fires are happening much more often, so often that they are becoming normal. When we deviate from things, when we become familiar with things repetitively, and they seem more and more normal to us, often we will accept them. And I would suggest to everyone on this call, don't accept the normalcy of these extreme wildfires. And also don't accept that firefighters are going to automatically come and put out the fire and you're going to be fine. Firefighters are stressed more than they ever have been with not only accountability, but with responses. LA City Fire has more than 1,500 responses, calls for service every day. They move more than 3,000 pieces of apparatus. They take more than 700 people to hospitals every day. They're busy and they get tired. And when we have a campaign wildfire, if it's man-made, and they often are, then we have to take some responsibility for that. So if we can reduce the risk on our individual homes, if we can collaborate through our homeowners associations or neighborhood councils or other groups, then we're going to lessen the risk. Not only will we be protecting our homes, but we will actually be protecting firefighters, the people we depend on to keep us safe. So that's a really important thing for us to manage and to take care of. And normal means major fires, and that's not good. I just got a question before we get into hot topics about making this information available in Spanish. And it's a very important topic to us. We are working on a methodology to make sure that we can do that. You may see Victoria Garcia, who is from our organization, who is wave to everybody, Victoria. And Victoria is one of our translators and people who communicates to our Spanish language folks. I don't know that we'll be able to make these meetings simultaneous in Spanish in the next month or two, but we will be taking steps to create much more Spanish language information for people. Our escape plans a lot of our printed materials are in English and Spanish, and other languages too. So we take it very seriously. Here's what we're working on. Some cool stuff coming up. More stuff about insurance. As Carl said, we really want to get Commissioner Lara to join us so he can talk to you directly now that a number of these insurance issues are starting to settle down. We want to make sure we notify people about the safety wildfire fairs that we're conducting. They're going to take place in many places in the city, not just in Brentwood or not just in Sylmar. They'll be in many places. There is going to be a wildfire evacuation drill that takes place in Council District 7 in the next couple of months. There's new wildfire maps coming from CAL FIRE, which unfortunately increases the very high fire severity zone areas. We're doing our defensible space workshop in the next month, and the wildfire symposium that we've talked about, we're moving it to early 2024. And there's some good reasons for that. Most importantly, when we talk about I'm going to actually go back to it here, to this map. There's something about this map that's extremely important for Southern California and the Los Angeles area. Because it's not red right now, it's the perfect time to harden your home. It's the perfect time to defend your space, because it's less likely that we will have a fire in the next 90 days or so. We don't know how things will heat up. We don't know how things will change for October, November, December. But for right now, this is a great time to be taking action to make sure that you're doing the right things to keep your home safe. And I think that's a really important thing to remember. Okay, our next meeting is taking place on September the 21st. Remember, it is the third Thursday at 7 p.m. every single month. And I think it's really, really important that we put that in our calendar and remember it, because these meetings are different. Every single one is designed to have unique information that we share with you. It's not a repeat of everything we've talked about the last time. So with that in mind, we hope to see you next week. And I would remind you, if you want to become a FireWise USA site, if you want to become a Fire Safe Council, work with us. We get our funding through state grants. We work completely independently from the LA City Fire Department and other fire departments. So when we earn money, we do it as an individual entity. Once we have funding, then we can enter into collaborations. So for you, everything is free. There's no need for you to spend any money other than on making your home safer. We are a nonprofit, so we always will say, hey, if you want to donate to us, that's good. I would say that for August and September, we don't want you to donate to us. We'd rather that you donate to Maui. And there's some very good opportunities for you to do that via sources that are legitimate and secure, and we'll make sure that your support gets to the right people. So before we end for tonight, does anyone have a question, or would anyone like to make a comment of any kind from our public gallery?
David, let me throw something in. As far as the Spanish language information that's available, all of the state agencies, the city agencies, FEMA, the governor's office in California, all of them have materials in multiple languages. So if you go on the OES, which is the Office of Emergency Services, which is part of the governor's office, you go to CAL FIRE, go to LA County Fire, you'll find this stuff available in all the languages you can imagine. Of course, Spanish is very prevalent here, so like David said, we have a lot of stuff in Spanish, and we'll have more, but those public agencies should have adequate information to get you started.
Thank you, Carl. All right, everyone. Maybe we have something in the chat. Let's take a quick look.
Ms. Weisselman.
Sarah Jane, what's your question? Unmute yourself and ask your question.
Yes, thank you. It'll be sort of a long introduction with an important question at the end. I live in Hollywood land with 100-year-old infrastructure under the Hollywood sign. None of it would be developed today. Extremely limited ingress and egress. We're 80% surrounded by dry brush. Our main artery dead ends at the end. Our streets are so narrow that every parked car prevents two-way traffic. Um, and this is the situation that we have. Our infrastructure barely handles the needs of our residents. And the city continues, and this is a fairly recent thing, and it wasn't always like this, to make our neighborhood a tourist destination. Our streets are now congested with cars. We have no sidewalks, so hikers congest our streets. We have fire trucks that have been able to get up. One had to wait to have a car towed. Our neighborhood association, we commissioned a formal fire study to be done that was just released that has fire mapping. I mean, it's a very extensive study because things are so dangerous here. It was done by former Cal Fire people, a former fire department inspector. We've been in touch. They keep saying, your neighborhood is next, but it will be worse than Maui, which it will be because our streets barely handle us. Maybe our homes, if they're hardened, will stand. But all it takes is one car that is abandoned, that gets stuck. And at the same time, there's only one way, too, that the fire equipment can be coming up. And you add to our neighborhood the hundreds and hundreds of tourist cars who will be here panicked, who don't know what to do. And everyone basically will burn up in their cars. And it's going to make Maui look like a nothing. And we have this formal report. It has very recently come out. We have sent it to various people, but it's like a yawn. And my question to you is, how can we get your support? Who can we go to finally make people listen? Because this is an evening like if the people of Maui were in front of you saying, we know there's a problem. Please help us. What should we do? Please help us. And everyone ignores them. And then 2 months later, you have this total destruction. And that's where we are tonight. And it's not a matter of our residents not being aware. And unfortunately, it's not even a matter of hardening our homes, which we will be working on, but it's basically loss of life. Hundreds of lives will be lost. That's my question to you.
Thank you, Sarah Jane. Three things that I can share with you. First of all, please, through the chat or afterwards, however you want to do it, connect with Carl Ginsberg. And it's very important that we meet with you and that we learn more from you directly. Number two, our organization, in collaboration with Council District 4, just did a door knock campaign on Beechwood and on adjoining streets directly underneath the Hollywood sign. And we have 2 homeowners association meetings planned in that area for October. I think it's important that we meet with you before then so that we can see what's happening from your point of view. I can tell you that during our door knock campaign, and this relates to any place we go, over 300 homes where when we knock on the door, we give people wildfire information, we ask them questions, we try and figure out what's going on. Of the 300, and I don't remember if it's 310 or 312, but of the more than 300 homes that we knocked on, fewer than 50 expressed any concern. And it's really important, if we're going to try and make change, that we get buy-in from the people that live in the area. And you're obviously extremely concerned. You were animated just now in sharing your background and your question, which is good. It's important to hear how concerned that you are. That will help us to help you. So I would suggest, if possible, that you connect with Carl. I think he can reach out to you via direct message in the chat, and we will come and see you. We work very closely not only with LA City Fire, but with the state. Carl just got back from being in Sacramento just a couple days ago. So it's an important thing for us. We can't promise you anything that will specifically happen until we learn from you. Every community is different. And so step 1 is to connect with Carl. Step 2 is for us to meet and to learn from you what your perspective is. But there are a number of people who are interested in helping. I would say that Nitya Raman, your council member for Council District 4, is, at least in our interaction with her, has been extremely concerned about Beechwood Canyon and what's happening up there, not only with tourists, but with the congested roads. You've got old craftsman style homes on some of these side streets that are beautiful to look at, but they're abandoned or run down, and they're fire traps. So if we look at how the risks add up, I think we're going to learn something that could be useful not only to your residents, but to the residents of any canyon in LA County. Thank you, Sarah
But
Jane.
just so far, uh, accommodating tourism still is most important to the elected officials, unfortunately.
There is always the divide between how do we keep our city in the black, so to speak, financially, and how do we project ourselves forward versus how do we mitigate issues. You said something very important, which everyone should hear. A very important thing that you said early on, which is if it was today, most of the construction in that canyon wouldn't happen. So the fact that it has happened is the issue. We can't evict everyone and tear it all down and go back to a natural environment. So we have to figure out how to manage it within that context. As to the tourism and the Hollywood sign, it's an issue that's above my pay grade, but it doesn't mean that we're disinterested. So we can take these messages and share them with people. The people who can really make a difference are your council members. So let's meet and let's figure out what's happening, and perhaps we can bring Council District 4 into the conversation and find out, actually put their feet to the fire, so to speak, and find out what they're willing to commit to make sure that tourist access to the Hollywood sign is either more controlled or reduced. Make sense?
Yes, I'm looking forward to meeting you first, and I think it will be a more pure conversation about fire prevention and public safety, which to
Absolutely.
me is what's most important.
Yes.
I mean, and in the
Oh,
end, they'll have tourists, but they'll have a lot of dead tourists.
yeah.
Sarah Jane, I sent you a text message with my email. So
Uh,
open up
let
the
me-
chat, open the chat, and you'll see it right there.
all right. Thank you very much.
You're welcome. Mrs. Weisselman has a question, David.
Mrs. Weisselman, go ahead.
It's actually Chamberlain, but whatever. I'd like to second what Sarah Jane had to say. The elected officials are, especially Council District 4 with Nithya Raman, are very, very supportive of tourists and hikers in the hills area. We live in the Hollywood Knolls. You can't get up or down on a Sunday morning because of all the traffic from the tourists going there. The fire department needs to tell the politicians that this cannot go on, that this is very dangerous. You need to listen to people like Sarah Jane. She may be emotional about what she's saying, but what she's saying is absolutely truthful and is not being heard and is not being paid attention to. Thank you.
You're welcome, and that's extremely important for everyone to hear, and we appreciate that. Anyone else have a comment they want to make? All right, we're right on 90 minutes. Perfect. Thank you, everyone, for being participant in this evening's discussion. And we're going to make sure that one of the things I want to mention to you all is that when we meet next month, we will give you an update on some of the issues that were raised in the meeting tonight, including what's going on in Beechwood Canyon. So we will make certain that we take some action, even if we can't tell you about specific process or progress. We will tell you what has happened and what we're doing to try and help. So thanks very much. Oh, wait, we've got a hand up. Hi, Michelle. What's your question?
There's a couple more questions.
Aloha. We're guests of Jails.
We're guests of Mr. Whitney, who's down the right corner. This may not be the bright platform, but Robert from up in the cool area, my heart's out to you. Our aloha is passed to you. We were in Lahaina last week when the fires hit. I'm just letting people know that it's not a pretty deal up there. We had ladies that were coming in to work at the front desk at the hotel, and I said, I just heard there was a fire in Lahaina. We heard the road was closed, and then later they figured that they found out their house was gone, and all they had was what they wore to work. And Robert has heard a lot of these stories, I know. So just a brief comment. I have my own website, but if you guys have in your heart, look at the websites that are out there, the way you could help the people in Maui, and do anything you can for them. They really need the help. That's all I wanted to say, and I will let everybody go. Thank you. And everything Robert told you was true, but he was 40 miles south of where the fires were. But everything he's telling you is true. Thanks. That's all I need to say.
Thanks very much, guys.
Thank you.
All right, everybody. Thank you very much for participating tonight, and we'll see you next month. Take care. Good night.
Thanks.